That's right. That's false. Yeah, I appreciate you asking the question because, as usual, the far right is proposing or putting out their false information. They're saying that we're allowing illegal immigrants is the word that they would use. Undocumented immigrants are not allowed to become police officers in the state of Illinois still. What we have allowed is legal permanent residents and DACA recipients now to become police officers. So we have the ability for people who are legally in this country and again, permanent residents or DACA recipients now to apply for jobs as police officers.
That's Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday responding to critics of a bill he signed to allow for non-citizens to become police officers in the state of Illinois. Welcome to it. It is Tuesday with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. And we've got a lot to get to, including the latest in this pretty large story that a lot of people are talking about. Not sure if there's been a lot of reporting on it, but obviously with a measure the governor signed on Friday, among 130 plus bills he announced were signed, he allows for non-citizens in the country, either through some kind of permanent worker status or through the deferred action of undocumented migrants and the deferred action program, DACA, of course, still very much challenged, and people question whether or not that constitutes somebody who violated immigration law. But state law has changed to allow for this. We'll look at the state statute in particular, but I do want to revisit what Senator Chapin Rose had to say yesterday. Well, he said this during the House floor. We talked about this yesterday. But Senator Rose was critical of the overall concept of this bill when it ultimately passed the Senate, just one of a handful of Republicans that actually opposed the measure. Here's Senator Rose on the Senate floor.
Senator Anderson just raised a great point about the oaths that we take to uphold the state constitution, also the federal United States Constitution. You have to actually change federal law for this to be legal. But put all that aside for a minute. Why on earth would the most important power of any government, the most important power that must be conferred with absolute concern for how it is employed and how it can be abused, is the power to arrest. We listen every day in this building to debates about the police powers of the state of Illinois. And yet here we are conferring the police power, the ability to arrest a citizen of the state of Illinois, or frankly, a visitor to Illinois from anywhere else in the United States of America, an American citizen, to a non-citizen. This is just a foundational thing.
So again, that's State Senator Chapin Rose, one of the few Republicans who actually opposed this measure at the Illinois State House. And what the bill ultimately does, and we will bring up the language just so you can kind of see what's going on here, and as far as how this spells out and changes state law. And hopefully this can be a lesson as well into how you can read state legislation. But if you look at the actual House bill that was signed, House Bill 3751, and we'll get this pulled up here for those following along online. You can see that, the bill is sent to the governor, and you can also see the engrossed text of the bill, which shows you what was changed and what was put in the bill. And here you can see the breakdown. It takes out the term, "it is unlawful for the," and replaces that with just the. So the sheriff of any county, and it takes out fewer than 1 million, or the corporate authorities of any municipality may authorize, empower, employ, or permit a person to act as deputy sheriff or special policeman for the purpose of preserving the peace, who is, and it crosses out not. So it says, who is a citizen of the United States, and it adds, or who is legally authorized to work in the United States under federal law and upon federal approval to obtain, carry, or purchase or otherwise possess a firearm. It goes on further to talk about those who are in the country as DACA recipients. If you look further at the enrolled bill that the governor ultimately signed, not only adds that who's legally authorized under federal law to be in the United States, is authorized under federal law to obtain, carry, or purchase otherwise possess a firearm, or who's an individual against whom immigration action has been deferred by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service under the Federal Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals process, and is authorized under federal law to obtain, carry, or purchase or otherwise possess a firearm. So again, that's like the raw text there of the law that the governor signed. And people, of course, as Senator Chapin Rose said there, are worried about handing over the police powers to non-citizens. But you do have some who've characterized this as allowing for illegal immigrants, and that's not the case. Just to be clear, that's not the case. However, there is debate about whether DACA recipients are on a path towards citizenship or if it's just simply deferred until that policy changes. And could that policy change by the courts? Could that policy change by, some kind of other way, like Congress, for instance? So obviously these are some questions that remain unanswered. But Governor J.B. Pritzker, he pushed back on people saying there's a lot of misinformation going on. Again, here's the governor from yesterday when asked about criticism of this bill.
That's wrong. That's false. Yeah, I appreciate you asking the question because, as usual, the far right is proposing or putting out their false information. They're saying that we're allowing illegal immigrants is the word that they would use. Undocumented immigrants are not allowed to become police officers in the state of Illinois still. What we have allowed is legal permanent residents and DACA recipients now to become police officers. So we have the ability for people who are legally in this country and, again, permanent residents or DACA recipients now to apply for jobs as police officers. But I am tired of the right wing twisting these things. They put it out on Facebook. They tell lies. They attack based upon those lies. They're perpetuating lies. So there are people out there that think that we're just allowing anybody to become a police officer. That's just not accurate. 2 other states already have provided this. We have a U.S. military that has 35,000 immigrants who are not U.S. citizens who are serving in the U.S. military today. 8,000 more sign up every year. We allow that in our U.S. military. We allow it in a couple of other states, and more states are adding on to this list of states that are allowing legal permanent residents. So I'm proud that we are doing this. I think it's the right thing to do. It's also good for our police departments. And, oh, by the way, the Fraternal Order of Police has supported it.
So again, Governor J.B. Pritzker there talking about the bill he signed and responding to critics who don't like the idea of handing the police power over to non-citizens to be able to arrest citizens, be it from Illinois or from other states visiting Illinois. But obviously there's some semantics being played with the words as non-citizen. Does that equate illegal immigrants? No. It could be somebody who has a work pass, essentially, or it could be somebody who is a DACA recipient. But again, the issue of DACA and whether that policy will remain still very much in contention, and debate about that continues. So that's where we're at right now. Of course, the law is in effect immediately from when the governor signed it. And just to, again, look at some of the language here of the law and what that changed. It changed, this saying that no longer is it unlawful. They strike that from the law. They say that the sheriff of any county or municipality can and may authorize, empower, employ, or permit any person to act as deputy sheriff or special policeman for the purpose of preserving the peace who is, again, they removed the word not, you can see it struck through, who is a citizen of the United States. So it used to say it is unlawful to grant police powers to someone who is not a citizen of the United States. That's what state law used to say, but it strikes not. And now it says who's legally authorized under federal law to work in the United States and is authorized under federal law to obtain, carry, or purchase, or otherwise possess a firearm, or who is an individual against whom immigration action has been deferred by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service under the Federal Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, DACA, process, and is authorized under federal law to obtain, carry, or purchase, or otherwise possess a firearm. Of course, there's a lot of questions there as to exactly who's allowed to have a firearm. Some people saying that one of the questions on a FOID card is, are you a U.S. citizen? I got to look at that FOID card application myself, but it sounds accurate. Let's go ahead and take a call at 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Good. Yourself?
Not bad. Well, you're talking about semantics and stuff, and they're talking about, was it permanent resident status that would grant them the ability to serve as law enforcement. That's correct? That they're saying in the bill? Or?
Yes, and
All
also
right.
DACA recipients.
All right. Well, here's a little kind of side bit on that. You can double check this. I'm kind of off the top of my head. It's been a while since I've looked it up, but I do believe that asylum, those that come in, illegally and then request asylum,
Right.
after 1 year, then can be granted permanent residence. So you technically, you are looking at a situation where you could have illegals who have come across who then have been granted asylum status. After 1 year, then they would be granted or could be granted permanent residence status, which then would allow them to become law enforcement officers. So you might want to double check that, but I think that's kind of what maybe some big folks are alluding to.
Well, it's the trajectory, and the governor himself has also indicated the difference between an illegal immigrant and somebody who's in the country seeking asylum, which allows for a process to be set up that could have them eventually get to a certain status of, being permitted to be in the country and to work, for instance. You can really kind of get down into the nitty-gritty policy details here, but that the ultimate concern, where do you stand on this? Do you have concerns that people who weren't born in this country or who may be going through a citizenship process, and they're not naturalized, but do you think that they should be able to conduct police activities in Illinois?
I have some real mixed feelings on that, 'cause there's a lot of moving parts in that whole thing. With regards to are they properly trained and all, but if you go back to, I guess, just the crux of the matter of them being, not born within this or not having citizenship status, I have mixed feelings. I kind of see both sides, of that, but I just that when the governor comes out and a lot of times just, that's flat out false. Well,
There's nuance.
yes and no. I mean,
there's a lot
exactly,
of nuance to all of this. There's no question. But
and the games that the governor's played, with this in the past, then that was what works me up and gets me, riled up about it, is because of his past, transgressions and such. So I don't know. I guess there's no simple answer on it.
Yeah, and one thing that Senator Rose said, and I appreciate the call, is that he doesn't care where the person's from, be it Australia, be it Canada, be it Russia. He doesn't want the police power to detain a citizen to be given to a non-citizen. Bottom line, that's one of the chief criticisms, again, coming from one of the Republican state senators that voted against this measure. Got to take a break, but coming back, we'll talk about how New York City is asking for some action on the immigration issue impacting that city, just like it's impacting the city of Chicago and a lot of other big so-called sanctuary cities. So stay tuned. We'll get to that next. All right, short segment here, but wanted to give you this story in the context of the conversation about undocumented migrants heading to various places across the country after the southern border. Millions of people have crossed in just the past year alone, and it's got people across the country in large cities, including Chicago, that have raised issue about resources going to undocumented migrants rather than to those who have been in these troubled communities for generations. So the frustration, I think, continues to mount in as far as what some of the public is having to say about this. And the Epoch Times talking about in New York City, they've got a flood of opposition. Democrats asking the Biden administration to declare an emergency as undocumented migrants continue to flood New York City. So 54 elected officials in New York have sent a letter to President Joe Biden to address the influx of illegal immigrants in the city, asking him to declare a federal state of emergency so that illegal immigrants can legally work in the country, they're saying. We've heard that as well from the governor here in Illinois. So one concern is if they're going to be in the city of New York, they need to be able to legally work in the city of New York. But you've got others across the country who are worried about resources, including up in Chicago, where you've heard that call for resources to be better prioritized when it comes to how certain migrants are being treated versus how certain communities are being treated. So a lot more debate on this, not just in Illinois, but across the country. And what's going to be done about the southern border? You have the U.S. House in recent hearings with the Department of Homeland Security Secretary threatening to impeach him over how the border's been handled. So, again, far from any kind of reconciliation when it comes to dealing with the migrant issue across the southern border. But is it really getting to the crux of the issue? Or is this really just setting up some kind of massive, quote, bipartisan immigration reform that could really change the landscape of this country?